Hi, good afternoon. I'm Charlie Emlet. I'm in the social work criminal justice program. This is my, I think, 19th year on the campus, something like that. I'm hoping fairly soon, I think I'll be promoted to furniture. So a couple things. I want to start by thanking the Office of the Chancellor and the Office of Research for this funding initiative, which I think is really important and really builds on that idea of a metropolitan university and kind of moving that connection. I want to talk a little bit today about this idea of building an age-friendly Puyallup. And I want to start by giving you some context that this work began something like around 15, 16 years ago and will probably continue on. And so what we're talking about today is some work that is a slice in time in the context of a very long-standing initiative. So, when we say age-friendly community, we sort of, what is that? And really, it's building a community that is beneficial not only for older people, but people of all ages. And the example I usually use when I talk to city council members and policymakers is we may have to adjust, say, things like the timing of a crossing, what do you call it, a crosswalk, so an 80-year-old woman has time to get across safely. But I always mention that my daughter, who has three kids, 6, 4, and 2, needs equally to be safe in terms of getting across the street. So a lot of things that we're proposing are beneficial to citizens regardless of their age. But the AARP and the World Health Organization has an age-friendly city movement, and it gives us an idea of what does that mean. So it's a community that incorporates or encourages active aging. I mean, basically the data says, keep moving, right? Get up and move, and that's huge. That recognizes the diversity among older adults. One of the things that we have a tendency to do is we have a tendency to homogenize old people. Well, it's one of the most diverse populations on the planet, and yet we, in terms of religion and spirituality, ethnicity and race, age, cohort, gender, sexual orientation, incredibly diverse, but we want to homogenize and say, old people are like this. Really? Oh, okay. So we recognize that respects decisions and lifestyle choices. We have an incredibly ageist society, and one of the ways that manifests is to become paternalistic. So rather than giving people, we have a tendency out of this what's sometimes called misguided compassion to here, let me make decisions for you. No, thank you. So, respecting decisions and lifestyle choices. And ensures policies, services, and structures related to physical and social environment. So we want cities that are a good place to grow old and where people want to stay when they retire, that they don't kind of migrate out and go to someplace else that is better. Why not live in the community that you've been established with? So the city of Puyallup applied to become an AARP World Health Organization age-friendly city. The designation was granted in May of 2016, and I always have to smile when I say we beat Seattle. We were the first city in the state of Washington to get this designation. And so we've been watching the process that's been happening with Seattle, and it's quite different. It's very much a governmental-driven process with a lot of bureaucrats and a lot of money and a lot of structure, and we have basically a small group of consumers. Yeah, most of them are older adults, and we're moving this forward. So we are looking at active engagement of community stakeholders to develop a community needs assessment and an action plan, which is part of our mandate in terms of receiving this AARP age-friendly designation. And so one of the things that we've been charged with And where this project focuses is a community needs assessment and the development of a 3-year action plan that then is approved by the city government and is forwarded to AARP so that we can continue to work on this project over the next several years and indefinitely into the future. So part of this first piece was a community needs assessment, and we've been able to accomplish that. We gathered data from people 45 and over who live in Puyallup zip codes. We dropped the age because we didn't want to just talk to retirees or older adults. We wanted to talk to people who are sort of on that cusp. Well, what are you thinking about retirement? What are you thinking about, in terms of your work life and living in Puyallup? What does it mean to you? What does this city mean to you in terms of growing older? We used online and hard copy surveys, and we gathered data between May and July of last year. So we were able to get 237 completed surveys. The range of respondents was 46 to 96, which is a nice spread, and a mean age of 70. And the questions in that questionnaire, in that survey, really focused around 8 domains, which is part of the model, the framework that AARP and the World Health Organization use. So these 8 domains are transportation, housing, social participation, respect and social inclusion, civic participation and employment, communications and information, and community support and health services. And so each city that gets this designation then takes a look at their own process and decides which of those 8 domains are most salient to that community. It isn't required that you address all 8, but it's required that you identify the ones that are most important to your community. That's what we're in the process of doing right now. So just to give you some idea, what we did is we put together a group of stakeholders that are part of the community and tied to those 8 domains. So this just gives you an idea. Obviously, Pierce Transit has to do with transit, multi-care has to do with healthcare, schools, interdisciplinary, intergenerational exchange, as well as Pierce College, the Y in terms of staying active. So you can get an idea of who these stakeholders are. So the project, this specific project, has really 2 components to it. One is I'm working with an undergraduate student by the name of Julie Lee, who we're in the process of gathering information. The stakeholders are looking at each one of those domains, deciding which ones are most important for us to work on for the next 3 years. The stakeholders are a wonderful group of people, but they also come from community agencies and are there full-time. I mean, they work full-time, right? So we need somebody to kind of be the glue to put this together. So Julie is going to be taking the information from the stakeholders, as well as the data that we gathered from the community assessment, and begin to put that together, decide which domains are going to be our primary focus, and put together an action plan which includes metrics, measurable goals, or measurable objectives, and how to move that forward over the next 3 years. Once that occurs, then we're required by AARP to develop a 3-year action plan that is inclusive, that talks about where we're going, and is formatted fairly specifically. It has to go to the city council. So one of the things that we realize when we do community work is things are fluid. We had a very, very supportive city council, and we still do, except the elections came and we have a new set of council members. And so the folks that we have now are not who was there 3 months ago. And so we're having to backtrack and do some work with the new city council members, teach them what we're doing, get them on board, and it's different. So here we go again. We're starting over. And so a good example is we have a new city council member who's Jim Castema. If you don't know Jim, he was a very powerful state senator for a long time. And so he comes in with a very, very rigorous view of how things should be done. He's supportive in a cautious way. So we have to sort of prove ourselves again to him. And so part of that idea of working with council members and policymakers is it's fluid. So what we're hoping to do then, and what Julie is working on, is taking those, the survey had 58 questions, taking those 58 questions and align them to the domains that we want to work on. So we have community input, we've had some focus groups, we need to develop an action plan around, and the 3 domains that we've focused on so far are community engagement and respect, transportation, and housing. And whether we add a 4th one or not remains to be seen. We're not done with the process. The stakeholders are only able to meet about once a month, so you know, it slows the project down a little bit. Timing-wise, though, the action plan is due to AARP sort of around kind of April or May, so it'll lined up very, very well with this, with the funding for this initiative. In addition to the student stipend, we were able to get some funds to help with the dissemination of the action plan. One of the things that, you know, we essentially have no money. Right? So when I see that I'm on the listserv for the Seattle project, and, you know, we'd see, you know, here we have, oh, we just got $20,000 to do this, and here's $50,000 to do this, and we're going, you know, we're passing the hat around. And so this will really help us in terms of disseminating our results. Now, the results of the action plan, when we put it in context, you have to remember that that's the beginning. That the end of the action plan is the beginning of the work that will occur over the next 3 years. So, you know, it's possible that by the time, you know, this really comes to fruition, you know, maybe I'll be another one of the retirees sitting around the table instead of an academic sitting around the table. This just gives you an idea of the timeline of the project. So really, we're in the process of this data analysis. Just received a nice summation of the survey and the domains from Julie Lee today. We continue to work with our, there's a private nonprofit that we formed a few years ago called the Puyallup Area Aging and Community Committee. They're the overall governance structure of this project, so we continue to work with them. We'll be submitting the final action plan to the city of Puyallup a little bit later this year. So I think that just about does it. Like I said, this is a slice of work that's been going on for over a decade and probably will continue to go on for a while longer. So, great. Thank you.